Hello and welcome to the Dr. Hibernica Comics Review. I'm your host, Dr. Hibernica. When we think of superheroes and superhero teams, most of us probably think of the Avengers or the Justice League or the Justice Society or some incarnation thereof. But Marvel and DC don't have a complete monopoly on superheroes. Teams, heroes, and anti-heroes like Spawn, Youngblood, or Cyberforce, not to mention Vertigo titles that are or were separate from the mainstream DCU, like Stormwatch or Hellblazer or Wildcats, have been around for quite a while. This week we're going to be looking at Jupiter's Legacy #1 from Mark Millar and Frank Quitely, while they try to do something new with the superhero and the superhero team. There are multiple covers for Jupiter's Legacy #1 that are readily available. This one is the Brian Hitch cover. We're looking at this one purely because it's more eye-catching than the others in my opinion. The cover shows Hero Utopian pounding on Darkseid lookalike Black Star. I like the composition here a lot, and the bright white and red really pull Utopian to the front. I'm not entirely sure that his leg is in a physically possible position considering the rest of his body, but he does look good. It does seem like a slightly odd choice to obscure the title of the book for its first issue, though. Our author here is Mark Millar. Millar got his start writing comics in the 90s in England. It wasn't long before he was working with Grant Morrison at DC Comics on Swamp Thing. Ultimately, Millar's most famous work for the publisher was Superman Red Sun. Due to conflicts with DC editorial, especially surrounding Red Sun, Millar moved to Marvel, where he worked on Marvel's Ultimate imprint. Several of his creator-owned works were published starting in the mid-2000s, including Kick-Ass. In April of 2011, Millar worked with 62 artists at a convention in England to take the Guinness World Record for the fastest production of a comic book and the most contributors to a comic book. Millar scripted the book, and each artist drew one panel. Among the artists that he worked with on that project were Dave Givens and Frank Quitely. Icon published the book and donated all proceeds to the York Hill Children's Foundation. We open with Sheldon Sampson sitting in a cantina in Morocco in 1932, with an incredulous ship's captain, not too dissimilar from Obi-Wan and Luke hiring Han to take them to Alderaan. Like Han, the captain of the ship is, he's reticent to hop aboard a harebrained chase through waters that he's known all his life in search of an island that he knows isn't there. Also, like Han, this is going to be a life-changing experience for him. Much to his surprise, the island has suddenly appeared there, where it definitely had not been before. According to Sheldon, they've never told anyone what happened on the island, which, I'm sorry, that place looks like it has to be Relay. But everyone knows that when they left the island, they were honest-to-goodness superheroes. In this world, like the world of Watchmen, America had superheroes on its side during its major wars. Millar's heroes showed up for the Second World War instead of entering the stage for Vietnam, but their importance to society is only going to have been increased by that as compared to guys like Dr. Manhattan or the Comedian. Cut to 2013, and it's clear that none of the Islanders were like Dr. Manhattan, or even Adrian Veidt. The world is not meaningfully different from what it is like for us today, at least on the surface. Superheroes are the sought-after endorsements instead of athletes, but the world is still focused on celebrity and distraction, as evidenced by this photo shoot and a girl in a costume that even Silk Spectre might think is a little bit much. All of the great battles are well and truly over. All the best villains died 10 or 20 years ago. My parents need to realize they were living in a golden age. Excuse me? I don't mean to interrupt, but my friend asked me to let you know she's waiting in the men's room when you're ready. This guy is the son of the Utopian from the cover, and it's clear that modern era has really made him feel out of sorts. Superheroes don't have a place here in his mind, since the supervillains are mostly gone. It never even occurs to him to use his powers to help protect people from ordinary criminals, or even to help in a social or political way. He and all of the kids of the superheroes that we'll be meeting in this book have simply fallen into decadence and something like lethargy. Also, I just noticed that this girl's bikini doesn't have any straps. How is it staying on? Does she have a superpower to make magical, practically non existent clothing? Is she a pink lantern who can only maintain a tiny uniform construct? Did she glue those on? None of those options sound particularly likely or comfortable. Anyway, we cut to Vermont, where Jules, the guy in the green suit, and a girl in red whose name is still unknown, are standing on a hillside avoiding an ongoing battle with Blackstar, the Darkseid lookalike from the front cover. Something about Jules' stance here strikes me as somehow unnatural. It's nothing as overt as a Liefeldian body shape or anything. Something just doesn't seem quite right about it. These two are children of other superheroes, and while they did show for the emergency call, they'd prefer to stay out of the way of the guy with the antimatter battery in his chest, as opposed to joining the fray. As they're standing around talking, the fight crashes to the ground, Blackstar barely being held at bay by the Utopian and his wife. They're buying time for Jules' father, Walter, to break into Blackstar's head. He captures his mind in this idyllic beach scene, effectively shutting off any conscious functions in his body. "Wait! What the hell's going on out there? What are they doing to me?" To be honest, it's actually pretty grisly. "I think Sheldon's hitting you with a car right now, but he shouldn't be more than another few seconds. Just wait here and try not to think about it. I think they just snapped your backbone." Oh, God! If this method of fighting supervillains doesn't make you uncomfortable, then you're inhuman. I think I would crack under the pressure of someone doing that to me. True, my plots and schemes aren't quite the level half of Missouri types that Blackstar pulls off, but still, yeesh. In the aftermath of the battle, Walter and Sheldon get into an argument over the kids not showing up. You have to remember, they didn't choose this life. They were born into the family business. You can't give them a hard time because they'd rather go to a movie premiere than take part in a street fight. "Well, I think we'd all rather be at a party right now, but having these powers comes with certain responsibilities." Excuse me while I bite my tongue. What do you mean by that? Gentlemen, please, let's not get into this all again. Turns out that Walter and Sheldon have an ongoing disagreement about exactly what their responsibilities should be in the modern era. Walter wants to go in and take control, use his powers to show the world's leaders what they should be doing, to take direct action against what he sees as political decadence and corruption. Sheldon, on the other hand, believes in the system and in the politicians. He believes that it's not up to heroes to make decisions for the people, that it's their job to protect them and nothing more. If this sounds familiar, it's because Adrian Veidt and Rorschach have the same conflict going on in Watchmen, and Superman has been on both sides of this multiple times in the past. I'll be interested to see what direction this book ultimately goes in. The girl in the pink outfit here is named Chloe. She's yet another child of a superhero couple. She's meeting with Lionel and another girl whose name we don't know to complain about her parents and try their new off-world drugs. The idea of off-world drugs raises lots and lots of questions. Are off-worlders in this universe just so biologically similar to humans that drugs can cross-pollinate, as it were? Or do alien drug dealers make sure to have a selection of drugs for all sorts of different physiologies? If it's the former, does that mean that drugs aren't the only things that can cross-pollinate? How would being half human, half alien affect citizenship in the modern era, with different countries and different planets? I have no idea whether or not Millar will even touch on these ideas, since they don't seem to be central to the plot, but I can imagine them possibly coming up later. As it happens, whether because off-world drugs are an awful idea, or because Chloe has an unusual physiology as a superpowered being, the drugs do not react well to her, and she goes down. I can't be certain, but Lionel is focused on the other girl up there in the top right of the panel. Either he's more worried about her mental state after the shock of watching Chloe crash, or she's going down too. This is where we set up for Jupiter's Legacy number 2. As number 1s go, Jupiter's Legacy exceeds expectations. While it did spend a lot of time setting up plot points for future issues, I definitely feel like a lot happened in the book. And although Millar didn't go out of his way to make sure that we knew the names of every single character that we met, I have no doubt that those who are important we will learn in time. Each one of these characters is bound to have a story, and I'm looking forward to reading them. Walter and Sheldon look likely to represent libertarian and authoritarian views on superpowers. And while this is nothing new, not even anything new for Millar after his work on the Marvel Civil War, I am hopeful that he'll take it in a direction that we haven't seen before. Likewise, superheroes doing drugs or looking for endorsements are nothing new either. See Snowbirds Don't Fly and Booster Gold. That said, there is a lot of room here for him to explore as well. Millar's writing is very strong here, and Quitely's artwork easily stands up to it. If you're looking for something new to add to your pull lists, definitely give this one a chance. Before I go, I would like to take a brief aside on the subject of Watchmen. I will admit there were a lot of comparisons between the two books in this review. By and large, this is something that is almost unavoidable. Alan Moore really set the standard for superheroes in the real world with Watchmen, and any books that run with that idea will inevitably be compared to it. Considering that this is Mark Millar's work, Kick-Ass might be a more appropriate comparison, but Jupiter's Legacy really feels closer to Watchmen to me. That said, Quitely's artwork definitely sets Jupiter's Legacy apart from Gibbons' work in Watchmen by being a lot more colorful and really focusing on the disparity between superheroes and their idealism and modern America, where Gibbons didn't really contrast the characters with the backgrounds so much as he contrasted them with one another. We haven't seen enough so far to know if Quitely will have the recurring art themes in Jupiter's Legacy like we saw with the comedian's logo, or with the absolute beauty that was Fearful Symmetry. But Quitely's attention to detail in the book is strong, and I have high hopes for what will come later. Millar's work is also separated from Moore's by a function of time. Watchmen was published in 1986 and 1987, just 11 years after the United States' final withdrawal from the Vietnam War, and 12 years after the resignation of President Richard Nixon. This is nearly 2 decades worth of history that any of us under the age of 40 weren't even alive during, and those of us under the age of 50 probably don't remember it very well firsthand. Nearly every one of Moore's readers would have, however. The world of decadence and political corruption that Moore writes is very, very different from the one that Millar is going for in Jupiter's Legacy. Mark Millar's world of political corruption is more based on the political shenanigans, or lack thereof, of today's Congress, the posturings of the Bush and Obama administrations on the war on terror, the war on drugs, online privacy rights, homosexuality and homosexual rights. You know all of this. I would not be surprised if all of those topics are touched on at least a little bit over the course of Jupiter's Legacy. In short, Millar's world is this generation's world. What these characters are dealing with are what we are dealing with. Or at least that's what Millar seems to be going for. Time will tell if he's writing the classic graphic novel of this era, or if he's just writing another good book. Personally, I'm hoping for the former. Millar does have his work cut out for him, being read through the lens of Watchmen, but so far, it looks like he's going to be able to shine on his own.